Well, hello. Would you like a nice hot piece of pea? It's on the hoose.
He's touching my pee. It's warm.
Would you like to feel my warm piece of pea? You gotta use both fingers for the pea.
And welcome back to episode 68 of Crips and Corks. I'm your host, DJ, here with my co-host,
Paul, as usual, and bonus points if you get that reference because it's a very niche reference. Comment down below if you get what that's from, if you know what that's from. But
we listen and we do not judge.
Exactly. How's it going, DJ? How was your week? I want you to start this week because I'm
Okay.
very interested to hear how you're going because I feel like you've been through it this week just by your
I have been.
demeanor.
I caught a cold. I got a sinus cold. I didn't feel like I sounded sick, but now that I'm listening to myself speak more, and I don't know where my phone is, so if it goes off, it goes off.
Yeah, it's fine.
But
We're
now
professional.
now that I'm talking, I can hear a little bit of raspiness to my voice. It definitely sounds a little bit deeper.
Mm-hmm.
It's up in my sinuses, and I can feel it. But I've been living off of hot tea and Benadryl. And speaking of Benadryl, the Hat Man came to me last night, and he told me, "You still owe him $10.50 for that pizza last year, you bitch."
And that's why I don't take Benadryl because he's not getting those $10. Trust and believe that $10 is staying in my
Don't forget the 50
pocket.
cents. I wasn't
Either
actually
way.
taking Benadryl. I have been taking Mucinex, Dayquil, and NyQuil. And yes, I have been feeling a little loopy, so
That's that scissor girl.
all the crazy off-the-cuff stuff I've been saying this week, that's the reason.
Just this week, because I feel like we're off the
Just
cuff
this
all
week.
the time.
Just this week, because I went off on Long John Silver's yesterday, and I did.
Yeah.
For no apparent reason. Not even on John Long Silver's. It was about somebody not liking Long John Silver's.
Right,
And it was
right.
just like, I went off the tracks. And that's so unlike me, but I'm going to blame the Dayquil.
I would never go off the track.
Not about a Long John Silver.
But everything else is on the table.
Yeah. Paul, how was your week?
My week was good. I was in good old New York City. I went for DJ's birthday without him. And
Yes, he did.
I almost thought of you a couple times too. And it's really interesting because our topic today actually takes place in New York City.
You went for research?
Well, I didn't research anything. And, oh my god.
You should have said yes because you would have won the Researcher of the Year award.
Oh, I should have said that.
You
We'll
should have. Oh
we'll
my
get
god,
them
you
next
missed
time.
it.
Nope, we'll get them next time. But New York was so wet. Oh, it was rainy
Me
and
too.
cold and
Sorry, I'm on a slight delay because of the cold medicine too.
Where you went?
Why did my voice do that?
Always went. No, New York, it's okay for a couple hours, but I could never live in a big city like New York.
I love New York.
Pittsburgh's big enough for me.
I love New York.
I know you do, but that's because you're a Broadway girly.
I am a Broadway girly.
Girl.
In my last life, I was Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, who spent most of her life living in New York.
Period. So it's in your soul. It's in
my
your
soul.
blood.
It's where I feel most
That
at home.
dirty trash city is in your blood.
When does this episode come out?
Next Sunday.
Next
we
Sunday.
are very on the nose.
Yeah,
So you guys are getting
this is the
updates.
last podcast in Biden's America.
Oh.
There may not be another episode if we get rounded up and put in the camps.
So we'll see what happens. Gulf of America. Crazy shit's happening.
I do just want to say to all of our listeners, to anyone who feels other, if you're a member of a minority, or if you're just a little bit weird like we are, just know that we see you and that Crips and Corks is going to remain a safe space. And the world is going to get really crazy. And we're here to be your release from it, but we're also here for you, and we love you, and we care about you. And if you need anything, please, please do not come to us. If you get that reference, we can be friends. But in all seriousness, we are here for you. Please come to us. If there's anything that we can do to help, we will do. And we're here for you.
Period. And along those same lines, let's get into a very serious Paul's Pop Culture Corner. So it's actually going to be a serious one because there's a lot of crazy stuff going on.
Yeah,
because the Vivian, she
died.
Yeah, she
I
died.
can't believe it.
Rest
and
in
she was
peace.
only 32.
Yes. And if you don't know who the Vivian is, she won season 1 of RuPaul's Drag Race
UK.
Exactly.
And I mean, she was huge in the drag world. Like, not only did she win that, but she was an international drag superstar.
Yeah.
Truly. She was in stage shows. She was popping up in TV shows. Like, even if you don't watch Drag Race, you've probably seen some of her work.
I mean, she was on All Stars, All Winners with all the American queens. She was the only British queen. And
she was hilarious.
She was so funny, so talented, and it truly is a big loss for the community. And speaking of losses for the community, it's been a tough week for California, so our thoughts are with the folks in California who have lost their homes. It's really sad, and my heart is especially with the animals who are going through all that.
The animals.
So,
and you know what? We're hearing a lot about just to take a minute, we're hearing a lot about celebrities who are losing their homes. They're going to be fine. They have millions of dollars in the bank. They're going to be able to, and even if they have millions of dollars in the bank, and also they might have second homes elsewhere that they can go to. My heart goes out to the normal people of Los Angeles, the day-to-day people who you're not hearing as much about. You're not hearing about their homes burn. And I want to take a minute to recognize them and say, there are real people being affected by this. And, Anthony Hopkins, who's an award-winning actor, very famous actor, his home was lost. And a lot of people must have been reaching out. And he put out on Instagram, thank you for everyone who shared their concerns for me. But you know what? The only thing you take out of this world is the love you leave in it.
yes.
And so he's going to be fine, but definitely think about giving to people who are real people who are being affected by this.
No, I want to backtrack to the celebrity thing. We do sympathize with the celebrities who may have lost photos and memories.
Absolutely,
stuff.
But we sympathize with that, but there are people who have lost their entire livelihoods.
Yes, exactly. So definitely sympathize and think of that normal, average, everyday person like DJ just said.
Who would have thought I would be the radical one on the podcast?
It's not radical to say poor people are losing their houses in this fire too. Not even just poor people, middle class people who don't have millions.
Yeah.
And I just feel for the farmers and the farm animals and there's a lot going on.
And also, fuck you to all these insurance companies who canceled people's fire insurance right before. They heard the fires had started and just went through and started canceling fire insurance policies.
Right, that's awful.
Because they knew they were going to have to pay out billions.
Yeah, that's awful. Screw them. And moving along really quick, we have one last thing, one more tragedy to address before we move on to today's beverage. Well, there was a tragedy because Wicked lost the Golden Globe to one of the worst movies out. What was that? Amelia Perez?
Did you watch it?
I have seen clips, and from what I've seen, I could sing better. And we've all heard my singing on here.
And also, I saw this on TikTok. I don't know if you sent it to me. But what is with these movies that are musicals, but they're hiding the fact they're musicals?
Exactly.
Anita Perez, Wonka.
The Joker.
Why are you so La La Land? That's going way back, but La La Land.
Oh, well, I think everybody knew La La Land was a musical.
But why, Hollywood, why are you making these musical movies and hiding the fact?
Right.
Are you afraid that us in the theater community are going to come after you because you didn't make an adaptation of one of our favorite shows.
Right.
But honestly, we probably would, because if you're going to keep producing shit, we're going to come at you for ignoring the actually good concepts that are already out there.
Right, right.
But also, we're not like that. I know, like, Paul had, like, an incident with the theater kids growing up, but, like, most theater kids aren't bitchy. We're bitchy in our own special way. We're not catty. We're catty in our own special way. But we're not total asswipes.
Mostly.
Most of us. The real theater kids out there. So, why hide it? Like, we're gonna support you, but, like, don't try to hide it to get more money, because that's just gonna get you shitty reviews.
Yeah, and I guess the point of all this is we're holding space for you, Wicked, because you deserved that Golden Globe in our opinion. And I'd have to say, just in our opinion, what?
Hold my finger.
Like space. The Ariana Grande?
Yes.
We're holding her finger. Oh my god, I wish I had the long nails. We should get long nails for the podcast.
Oh my god.
Anything last?
No,
any last
I've
thing?
said enough.
Okay. So today, as you all know, we are sober this month and raising awareness. And what was that charity one more time?
We're raising awareness. Well, finish what we're raising awareness for.
Oh.
We're raising awareness for the sober lifestyle, that there's nothing wrong for it, and also for addiction and recovery. And we're doing so by shouting out, I wanted to say partner, but they have no idea we're doing this. Right. Shouting out Shatterproof, which is a nationwide addiction and recovery organization.
Yes, they're an amazing organization, so go check them out.
That you can find them at www.shatterproof.org.
Yes. And on the very opposite spectrum, we are trying dirty sodas today, as made popular by the LDS Church. Now, do I agree with the Mormons? No. But we're going to see if this dirty soda craze is what the internet says it is. Okay, everyone's going crazy about it. The Mormons love it. People say it's so good. So what we're going to do is we're going to have two beverages. We have Dr. Pepper and coconut cream. So we're going to do the Dr. Pepper coconut one. And then I have a Diet Coke and sweet cream. Okay, so we're going to do a Diet Coke and sweet cream and give these dirty sodas a try. I know the recipe does call for lemon or lime to add just a little touch of, I guess, sour to it. But I'm not about that sour life. I just want this.
The clip I saw didn't do that.
Really?
I only watched one and it didn't do that. So, but I've only watched one.
So, today's ASMR is the cracking of the soda. So. Ooh. It was so crisp, girl. I should have gotten... That's... Oh, wait, can you actually hold that up so I can pour it in? Because the big bottle takes 2 hands. Ooh. Get into it, yeah? Okay, we'll add a little more. I don't know. I don't know how much, like, the measurements of this, like, how this is supposed to
Are there
go.
measurements?
Probably not. I don't know. We're just gonna...
Did you ever get a spoon?
No. We're just gonna do it with our heart. So we got Dr. Pepper and the coconut. Okay. So, set that over there, and we'll get the spoon after. Okay.
Do you want me to get the spoon while you do that?
Yes. So, Diet Coke ASMR. Diet Coke ASMR. Ooh, fancy. Get into the Diet Coke. Okay, we're going to give it a little pour. A little bop, if you will. Ooh, she's spicy. Ooh, girl. She's a dirty, dirty girl. All right, and then we're going to go in with Chobani coffee creamer in the flavor.
Why is this chunky?
Chobani coffee creamer in the flavor sweet cream. Let's give her a good old pour. I'm not sure how much creamer to add, but we're just going to add it. Ooh. That's probably enough. Ooh, let's give this a little mix. Okay, so you want to try the Dr. Pepper first, and I'll try the Diet Coke first?
There's so much foam on top.
We gotta cheers! What are you doing? Jesus. Okay. Cheers!
Cheers.
Oh my god.
Okay. That's pretty good.
This tastes a little bit like an ice cream float. You have to try this. Okay. Tradesies!
Go from this end because I'm sick. Which
this
did you
end?
drink on?
You drank that end?
Drink this end. Because I
Okay.
handed you... Yeah, which way did you drink? Did you drink?
I think I drank from that.
Okay, so I'm going to do this way.
Yeah.
Okay, ready?
Cheers. One more cheers.
I like mine better.
Yeah, I like mine better. I don't really like the...
Okay. Forgive me, Taylor Swift, for I have sinned.
Okay.
I think that would... I see what you mean by tasting like a float, but I think it would taste better with a regular Coke. Because I think the milk is overpowering the diet a little bit.
See, I like that, though. I like the flavor of the sweet cream, like, being very pronounced. I give mine 4.5 grapes, and I give yours 2 grapes.
I give mine 4.5 grapes.
What do you give the Diet Coke and sweet cream? 3. Okay.
But what I like about this one is the coconut cream goes very nicely with all the flavors of the Dr. Pepper.
Yeah, I can see why people like this. And one thing I didn't mention is this recipe is actually inspired by Pilk, which is Pepsi and milk. Which
is disgusting.
Yeah, and people like actually drink Pepsi and milk. Actually, my brother, when we were kids, he used to drink Pepsi and milk.
For fun?
Yeah, he really enjoyed it. So I guess that's what just like inspired this. But also, I'm pretty sure the Mormons drink this dirty soda because they can't have like alcohol or coffee or whatever. So they do dirty sodas, and that's what they get their fix on. So I get it. I get why they're drinking this. It does taste good, and I don't know, it's just like a fun little beverage. I get the culture, I get it, I'm down with it. This is one of the things of the Mormon church that I get and can somewhat agree with, okay? Would I drink this again? Yes, because it's going to be left over in my fridge, and I kind of have to. Now, would I drink it again on purpose? Probably, yeah. Like, if I'm at a party or something, like, I'm trying to stay...
This is so fucking foamy.
It is very foamy.
Did you watch me eat all the foam off the top, and then I stirred it to make sure it was all stirred, and it's all foam again?
It is very foam. But if I was at a party and I wanted a fun beverage, but like, let's say I had to drive later, this is a good option for that. So try yourself a dirty soda. Let us know down below what you think. Do you have anything to add about the beverage?
No.
All right, then I guess it's time. Do you want to hear a story, DJ?
Damn right I do.
All right. With over 1 million buildings and 8.35 million people, New York is one of the most densely populated cities in the world. And what comes with a dense population? That's right, crime. But good thing there's all those people in New York to witness those crimes. They can report what they saw and help catch the culprit. Not only are there a ton of people to witness crime, there's a ton of people to witness alien abductions, of course. That's right. Today, we are going to be talking about Linda Napolitano, who was abducted by aliens in New York City, and the witnesses who saw her taken from her Big Apple apartment in a beam of light.
Is this that story that we talk about in psychology class where a woman was murdered and everyone just ignored her?
No, I mean, this isn't Linda. Linda is still alive today.
Oh, okay.
But that sounds...
Just the way when you went to crime, I started thinking like about that psychology class, the bystander effect, and...
But also at the same time, if you're being abducted by aliens and they're like floating you above New York City, what are you gonna do besides stand there and be like, holy shit, there's this lady above the city and there's a spacecraft?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Independence Day.
Now, have you heard of Linda or any of this? It's
Wait, what's her name?
Linda Napolitano. Now, please note...
Is she related to Janet?
Janet, what are you fucking talking about?
Janet, how do you say the last name?
Napolitano?
I swear, like that Janet Napolitano was President Obama's Homeland Security Secretary. And I just want to know, if you tell me they're sisters, and aliens, and like...
No. No, that's very, very far off kilter.
I'll be quiet now.
Linda, actually, that's not her real name. I'm not going to dox her and give out her real name because she's trying to protect her privacy for whatever reason. She doesn't want people to, like, know what her real name is. I know what it is because I did some research. I can tell you afterwards if you want to hear it. And I guess if you really wanted to know, you could do some research. But everyone knows her as Linda Napolitano. And honestly, I don't know why she wants her private. Well, we'll get into all that later. Let's just get into
I can understand.
Yeah, well, she has... she's
Trevor.
Trevor?
Travis.
Oh, Travis Walton. Oh, our first alien abduction story. Yes, yes. Well, I mean, also, she was on a whole Netflix documentary about this experience. So, like, how much privacy is she going to have?
Well, tell me what happened.
All right. So, in November of 1989, during a blackout at 3:15 a.m. in New York City, 23 people witnessed Linda Napolitano be abducted from the 12th floor New York apartment. Please note... Oh, wait, never mind. Ignore the please note. Please do not note. So, Linda was abducted by 3 extraterrestrial beings who beamed her out of her apartment and levitated her into the spacecraft that was floating above the city. What's up?
Okay, is this from Linda's perspective, or is this from the bystander's perspective?
Linda. So we're going to be talking about Linda's perspective, and actually the witnesses, we don't hear much from the witnesses, and you'll see that throughout the story, that even though these witnesses are playing a major part in the story, we really don't hear much from them.
Okay, because I was about to say, how do we know it was 3?
Well... one of the witnesses did actually see her floating up there with the 3 beings. So, yes.
Okay.
Now, Linda said the aliens performed experiments on her before returning her. This abduction, however, was not Linda's first abduction. Linda was reportedly abducted by aliens during a hiking trip in the Catskills Mountains 13 years before this incident happened.
First of all, it's very common for abductees to be abducted more than once or to have more than one contact.
Exactly.
Going back to childhood. And also, Catskills, the crone.
There's some spooky stuff going on in the Catskills Mountains. And like you said, it is very common for people to be abducted multiple times. I was actually going to bring that up later. And also being abducted in the woods, in secluded areas, that is a very common thing as well.
Yeah, normally you hear farms, rural.
Right. But that's what makes this story so interesting, is that she was abducted in the middle of New York City and other people actually witnessed it. Mm-hmm. It adds so much credibility.
What year was this again? I'm sorry.
1989.
89. During a blackout.
So, the experience in the Catskills haunted Linda. So, in April of 1989, before the New York abduction, she reached out to a UFO researcher, Bud Hopkins. Now, Bud was a former artist. He was a very respected artist. But he got into UFOs and he got in a little too deep and he lost all of his respect. He got a little crazy with it, So he kind of lost his respect in the artistic community and started...
You know something about that?
What do you mean? Yeah. I do talk about spooky shit a little too much these days. It's I need to stop thinking so much about paranormal things.
When we were
murders.
when we were at the club and some guy was flirting with you and he was like, yeah, I just moved into an old house, and you went, is it haunted?
Well, it's a valid question. I want to know if the ghosts are there.
And he was like, you should come by and see. And you're like, I'd love to investigate. And I'm like, Paul, that's not what he's saying.
Right. Spoiler alert, I'm still single. Okay. So, Linda found Bud by reading one of his books and decided to contact him and told him about her Catskills abduction and joins Bud's support group for alien abductees.
You said one of his books.
He does have multiple, yes.
I know, and just talking about how he got a little too deep, I just imagine he's written like 60 books. They're all self-published.
Very that.
None of them are very long. They're all rehashes of what he wrote previously.
See, he's just one of those guys that got in too deep. Because if you get into too deep into these things, you get into conspiracies, and it can very quickly take over your life.
And you and I have talked about this. Like, to the average person, you and I may seem woo-woo.
Yeah.
But, like, there comes a point, and, like, the more research I do into the paranormal, some people are a little more woo-woo than others.
Yeah, it's those people who can't go one conversation without bringing up, like, aliens or ghosts or something like that. You have to have other hobbies. You can't let this stuff consume your life, because it will consume your life, and people will not want to be around you.
Amen.
So, Linda would eventually also tell Bud about her nose. Now...
What?
Exactly. What happened to your nose? What happened to her nose?
Did you get a rhinoplasty?
Well, one day after the Catskills abduction, Linda noticed her nose was crooked. And this really bothered her.
It wasn't crooked before?
No.
Did she fall?
Not that I'm aware of, not that she's aware of. But she noticed one day her nose was crooked after that. So, of course, thinking, well, maybe, like, I accidentally broke my nose, I didn't know. Maybe it's a tumor, like, growing in there, making it look crooked. She goes to the doctor to take a look at her nose. And the doctor said, oh, you must have had surgery. There's a surgical scar, like, up inside of her nose, right? Like, it wasn't visible on the outside.
You're telling me these aliens abducted her, gave her a nose job, botched it, and didn't fix it?
Well, actually, the aliens didn't give her a nose job. They did worse. They put a foreign object in her nose. And the doctor would also do an x-ray, and they found this foreign object that was in Linda's nose on the x-ray. And this x-ray would go on to be one of Bud's pride and joys during his lecture circuits, because he finally had, like, some sort of good evidence for aliens. This x-ray would be a huge deal.
Was it metal?
Metal?
Was it metal?
I imagine.
Did they take it out?
Well, before anyone could take it out, it disappeared. So did the aliens abduct her again and take it out before the doctors could? I'll leave that up to you folks at home. What do you think? Because there are pictures of Linda, and her nose looks crooked in the photos.
Did it, like, suddenly self-correct?
Self-correct? Well, I guess when they took the object out, yes.
I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like this.
I imagine her nose was probably pretty swollen after they took out the object, so probably the swelling went down afterwards. Now, one thing to note with this...
Now, what if it was, like, this is worse, this is worse, this is worse.
Yes.
What if it wasn't metal? What if it was something degradable?
Oh!
So, like, some kind of chemical or medication or something that they put in her, and they put it in, like, a capsule, and doctors can do this, where they'll put something in there and it will slowly degrade until it's into your system.
That's an interesting thought, actually. At first I thought you meant, like, the aliens...
Not back then. They didn't have that back then. Like, they have that now. We do. Mm-hmm. But, like, aliens, like...
At first I thought you meant, like, the aliens put it in her, knowing it would just, like, degrade and biodegrade on itself and just disappear on its own. Which I could very much see happening. Now, one thing to note about this x-ray and the doctor is allegedly, the doctor was actually one of Linda's family members, right?
Allegedly.
Yes. So keep that in the back of your little minds, okay?
That's good. I'm going to name my daughter that.
Actually, I take that back. When I said that, that sounded kind of condescending. So just keep that back in the back of your big mind.
Allegedly, the doctor was allegedly a doctor. And allegedly, he was part of Linda's family. In reality, it was her cousin Vino.
How did you know she's Italian?
Napolitano.
Oh, that's an Italian name. She's very Italian. She's actually a very feisty Italian lady, and I like her. Like, I'm very scared of her.
Can I finish my joke?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
It was her cousin Vinny who worked in a dentist's office for a month before he got fired for hitting the laughing gas.
Oh, DJ. But for real, Linda is very, she is a feisty Italian woman, and she does scare me. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, no, the joke was about, because we kept saying allegedly about the doctor.
I still don't get it. I'm not going to lie to you.
I'll tell you when you're older.
No, Linda does kind of scare me. And actually, Linda's father was a boxer. And her father actually taught her to take no shit from no one. And she doesn't. Okay, girl.
So why'd she take shit from the aliens?
Girl, what's she gonna do? We'll get into, the experience
Thank
later.
you.
We'll get into the experience later. Now, it was while Bud was still reeling from the x-ray that he would get a call from Linda saying she thinks that she was taken again. Bud tells her to come over immediately, and they do a hypnosis session.
I don't like Bud. I don't trust Bud. I don't know why. I just don't get a good feeling.
Well, because Linda scares me, I have to distance myself and say my views do not necessarily reflect those of DJ in this episode. From this point on, Linda really scares me. I'm not gonna lie to you. She was really spooky in that documentary. I'll get into it later,
okay.
But homegirl's spooky.
Okay.
Now, like all alien people, not all alien people, but a lot of alien people, they like to do hypnosis sessions to recover
UFOlogists.
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 Ufology, yes. They like to do hypnosis sessions to bring back the memories of those abductions and whatnot. So, after the hypnosis session, well, I guess during the hypnosis session, this is what Linda says happened to her during that fateful night in New York City. She was going to bed and had her stun gun by the bed. Then she realized she didn't look behind the drapes as usual. She forgot to check if someone was or something was really there. She tries to sit up to look, but then all of a sudden, she's paralyzed. She describes it as electricity going through her body, and she smells the familiar scent of almonds that she smelt from the past abductions.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, she sees a creature at the foot of her bed. Then it gets on her bed and hisses at her. After, she is lifted out of her bed, out her window, and is floating above the city. She is looking up at the craft, and she says it opens like a clam, and she is looking up into a volcano. She then remembers being terrified, thinking that the aliens are going to kill her. When she was brought into the ship, she was brought into a hallway with benches along one side, and Linda was then brought down the hallway that she was led into when she first got into the ship. When she was let down the hallway, there were sliding doors, and the aliens let her through the sliding doors, okay? And this is when she's led into a big room, and there's a lot of different colors in the room, flashing buttons, really what you would imagine a spaceship would look like. And in the middle of this room, there is a long, ominous table.
Okay.
At this point, Linda tries to fight back, but she's still paralyzed. So she just starts screaming and screaming and screaming. Now, while she is screaming, the aliens start making strange noises. The aliens must have been annoyed because one of them covers her mouth, as to say, shut the fuck up.
I'm gonna time out.
Mm-hmm.
What was the creature that hissed at her? Was it one of the aliens? Was it a face eater?
It's an alien abduction, DJ.
I know, but was it one of the aliens that was abducting her, or is it one of their pets?
It was one of the aliens that are abducting her.
Okay, well, you just said creature.
Yeah, well, she described it as a creature in one of the interviews, and I'm kind of just...
And it hissed at her, which I don't like. Then there were obviously two more in the room.
Yes, but she's mainly focused on the one that's on her bed, obviously.
Obviously.
Right.
And so now... Okay.
Now, when you're picturing these aliens, think of your typical, the Greys. Exactly. Big eyes, all that stuff.
Yeah, the big head, big eyes, little bodies. Okay.
Exactly. So, next thing she knows, the creatures are around her, examining her stomach. And she said one of them poked her with a needle the size of a turkey baster. And that's the last thing she remembers before being returned. And please note, some of these details were uncovered over multiple hypnosis sessions, because she did do multiple hypnosis sessions with Bud that would uncover more details about about her abduction. I just wanted to put it in one long story so it wasn't disjointed.
Okay.
What are you thinking?
No, I'm just taking in.
Okay. Now that we know about her abduction story, we know a little bit about Bud. Let's talk about Carol, who was Hopkins' wife at the time.
Who's Hopkins?
Bud Hopkins.
Oh,
Sorry.
Bud's wife. Okay.
Yeah, Bud's wife. Sorry, I'll call him Bud from now on.
Thank you.
So, before she met Bud, she made films about science. And she was always a skeptic before she met him. So, she went from this very scientific world into a world of aliens all the time. Into, it's real, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yes. So, she went from this very, hard evidence field to this very, ooh, which is interesting. I wonder how, they met, how they got engaged. From my research, it didn't really go into how they met and whatnot, but I'd be interested to know how they met and, how their paths, crossed.
Well, I mean, maybe it happened when he was a well-respected artist.
Oh, that would make sense. So she met him before he went a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Now, when Bud introduced Carol to Linda, Bud apparently described Linda as an attractive woman in her 40s, credible, and that she had been traumatized. Carol met Linda for tea and said that she thought they got along and they were going to be friends and everything was cool. Now, when the abduction happened to Linda, Carol was very skeptical. She was a woman of science after all, so Carol did what she knew best and started filming. She wanted evidence. She wanted to document Linda's story. She wanted to document everything that was going on.
Okay.
And I give her props for that, okay? She is a woman of evidence, and she's going to get the scoop, the story, the bop, okay? And I don't blame her for being a little skeptical. If your husband's being a little woo, a little aliens all the time, I don't blame her. Do you have any thoughts? Sorry. I'm going to keep checking in just to make sure.
I have many thoughts, but I'm checking myself because you might say something in a little bit that will change my mind.
Okay, yes. I just didn't. I know I'm talking a lot, so I don't want to talk over you, so that's why I checked in.
No, you're good.
Okay. After the abduction, during Carol's filming, and the interactions Linda had with Bud, Linda began to get paranoid that she was being spied on by government intelligence agencies. She had the feeling people were following her, and she said unknown numbers would call her, and sometimes she would just pick up her phone. The phone would be on the hook, and she would just pick it up, and when she would pick it up and put the phone to her ear, someone would just say, can I help you? She wouldn't dial or anything. She would just pick up the phone, and there would already be someone on there listening. So it would get to the point where Bud would bring a friend into both of their homes to make sure it wasn't bugged by the government. He had some sort of special technology that would sense if it was bugged, and he was going around trying to find bugs in the walls and their phones and all sorts of stuff. No, he didn't find any, but it'd be interesting if it did. So Bud began to fear the government was going to try to keep Linda quiet or kidnap her and wipe her memory of the incident. Their theory at this time was, and I quote, "Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they aren't out to get you." Really, quite the motto to live by. Really, as you can tell, their mind is going 1,000 miles a minute at all times during this period of time after Linda's abduction. They're paranoid to a T, okay? Now, eventually, Linda would be visited by two policemen, Dan and Richard, who questioned her about the incident. They asked Linda how she got out of her apartment the way she did and said they saw her hanging outside her window in a beam of light with 3 other beings. Linda said she didn't want to talk about it with them, and this made Dan very upset, and he stood up looking like he was about to hit Linda. But luckily, Richard stopped him, and Linda promptly kicked them out of her apartment. Now, after she kicked them out, they did have an argument outside of her door. And this really freaked Linda out, obviously. So who does she go run into when she's freaked out about aliens? Exactly. She goes running on home to Bud, tells her everything that's happening. And after this, Bud's focus was on finding out who these two policemen were. He was calling local police stations. He was calling everyone. And spoiler alert, he wasn't able to find them. Because if you haven't noticed, Stan and Richard are pretty basic names that anyone could make up, really. So, he obviously didn't find them. But 3 weeks later, a tape recorder was mailed to Bud. And it was Richard saying he witnessed Linda's abduction and saying how scared and sincere they thought she was after speaking with her. And said they cannot be identified because they would be laughed at work. They would later get another letter telling Bud that they were not police officers, but high-ranking government officials acting as protection for a foreign diplomat.
Oh.
They said the Secretary General of the United Nations, Perez de Cuellar, was in the car with them that night and also saw the abduction. So now a government official is involved. And honey, the headlines start coming. The newspapers, talk shows, interviews, radio. Linda's everywhere telling her story. Bud's everywhere. He's pitching this story to people. Like books, movies. The possibilities are endless because this stuff is happening to them. I can tell you're holding it back, but I can...
Did the Secretary General of the United Nations ever confirm this?
Obviously, they did not, because they're a professional.
That's fine.
In that, I mean, they're high-ranking professionals. Do you think admitting he saw aliens abduct someone in the middle of New York City would really help his credibility as a national official?
International.
International, sorry, that's what I meant. Thank you.
You're welcome. Go on.
Okay.
Go on.
So, time would pass, and later Linda would go to bed and feel something down her throat. So, when she got out of bed and went into the hallway because she was freaking out a little bit, she thought she would just take a little walk down the hallway or whatever. She gets down the hallway and sees her entire family standing in the living room with nosebleeds. She thought the aliens were back and coming for her family now. Now, Linda has a husband and 2 sons, so now she's worried about her family. And one thing to note, Bud says aliens can be interested in families, not just an individual, like interested in studying bloodlines.
Yes.
Because aliens, one big theory about aliens is they're interested in our genetics and what makes us us. So
and they'll visit multiple generations of families, single families.
Exactly. And actually, there's a story that Linda would tell about her grandmother seeing aliens in her apartment as a kid. And then eventually, Linda and her sister both would start seeing the same aliens that her grandmother was seeing. So that really tracks with Bud's theory about the genetics and the aliens, like, visiting entire bloodlines and, like, studying the entire bloodline. Okay. So this brings us to little Johnny. This is
Don't
Linda's...
like that.
Here's Johnny!
Don't like that it's coming to little Johnny now.
So Johnny was Linda's son, and he describes that night, the night in the living room that I just described.
With the nosebleed.
Yes, exactly. And what he remembers that night was being in an all-white room with 2 really tall men. He said the men were mean, and then the next thing he remembers, he was in the living room. Now, Johnny would report other abductions to Bud, like other than that one to Bud, but that's just what he remembers of that specific abduction. I know you're thinking that's really disjointed, but he's a kid at the time.
Yeah, no.
And he might be more sensitive to whatever, like, memory wiping things the aliens have. So that's probably why his memory of that night is so disjointed. That's my theory, anyway.
No, it's really creepy that the nosebleed thing, because you do hear a lot about that from abductions.
Oh, I would be freaked the fuck out if I walked...
And black-eyed kids.
Yes! Like, if I walked out into the living room and my entire family was just standing there staring at me with nosebleeds,
Yeah, that's creepy.
Straight out of a horror movie.
Stranger Things.
Like, spooky stuff. Stranger Things. Did that actually happen in Stranger Things?
Someone had a nosebleed.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I never watched it.
Now, after this incident, the family gets involved, and Bud would get very close to the family, and he felt a very, very deep sympathy for Linda and her kids and everything they were going through, right? And obviously, this raised alarm bells for Carol, and she thought Bud might be losing his objectivity when he was doing his research with Linda. So, Homegirl did some digging and noticed when she was under hypnosis, her story was very, like, well put together. Like, she knew her story, like, there was no hesitation. Whereas when she witnessed other people go under Bud's hypnosis, they seemed, like, confused at a lot of the time and things, and, like, Bud kind of had to lead him, which is one of the problems with the hypnosis. But we'll get there. So the fact that Linda seemed so much more put together during her hypnosis sessions versus the other hypnosis sessions she witnessed with other clients of Bud's. Well, not clients, but, like, I imagine they were people from his alien abduction group. That's raising some red flags for Carol and me a little bit. And she actually... So when Johnny told Bud about that night in the living room, he actually told him to it over the phone. And Carol re-listened to this phone call. And she noticed there were some pauses when Johnny was speaking. And she thinks that's when Linda was coaching Johnny on what to say during these phone calls. So Carol became very concerned this was all a hoax and not the biggest UFO case of the century. Because if this is true, this is the biggest UFO case of the century. I mean, 23 witnesses, like, middle of New York City. It's all over the news, radio, talk shows. It's everywhere. It would be the biggest...
You keep saying 23 witnesses.
Yes.
Where are their testimonies?
I'm not getting...
Did they... What I'm asking is, were there 23 witnesses? Or did Linda and Bud say there were 23 witnesses?
The 23 witnesses contacted Bud. And Bud said that they did not contact anyone else because they wanted to be more anonymous, they didn't want to be laughed at, and they didn't want their reputation to be ruined.
Okay.
So that's why the witnesses felt comfortable only calling Bud, because he knew about this and, like, he was the guy to contact. Now, I will say the witnesses, they were very interesting because the witnesses were spread out. Some of them were, like, on a local bridge. One of the names for this story is the Brooklyn Bridge Abduction, because some of the witnesses were on the Brooklyn Bridge when they witnessed this, and some were walking by. One person actually was, like, in their apartment, and they saw...
One person was the Secretary General of the United Nations.
Exactly. One person was in their apartment and saw strange lights, like... Exactly. So... Carol confronted Bud, and that made him extremely unhappy, of course, and he basically refused to answer a lot of her questions.
And then he walked out and filed for divorce.
Not right away. This would cause a rift in their marriage, because Bud wouldn't accept any possibility that Linda's story wasn't true. But Carol wanted to explore it more. So, Carol decided to keep filming and researching until she proved it was a hoax. She was a woman on a mission, and I appreciate that.
Me too.
Now, while Carol was doing this, Linda was allegedly being harassed by the two men who came to her apartment earlier. She said she couldn't go anywhere without being watched or something weird happening. So, Linda borrows a gun from a friend.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it's always great when a gun gets involved.
Jesus.
And Bud decides to wire her for sound wherever she goes. So now she has a wiretap on her, so they're recording audio wherever Linda goes. Well, one night, Linda was working, and a black car pulls up, and it's Richard and Dan. One thing leads to another, and Richard and Dan grab Linda, shove her in the car, and kidnap her. They make Linda take off her shoes. Now, Linda thinks this is to see how many toes she has.
They didn't check her for a wire.
They did ask her if there was a wire on her.
Oh, they just said, you wearing a wire?
She said no, and she was...
Take off your shoes. Okay, take off your shoes.
Take off your shoes! Take off your shoes, bitch! Well, Linda thinks they make her take off her shoes so they can see how many toes she has, and one of them calls Linda a half-breed. So basically, they think at this point, Linda is half alien.
I need a moment.
Half human.
I need a moment. Can we, put in, a please stand by? Or I just need a minute. Okay.
And now, maybe this is a good time to put in here that, once again, Linda, I believe everything you're saying. And I'm not saying this because I am deeply, deeply scared of you.
You're such a fucking brown noser. I can't stand it. And this is coming from somebody whose senior superlative was teacher's pet.
Teacher's pet? Oh my god.
And I'm calling you a brown noser.
I mean, I just don't want to get jumped, honestly. So...
If she was 40... In 1989, minimum, because in her 40s. She's 70, 80 years old now.
You need to watch this documentary, DJ. She is scary.
We're watching it after this. I don't care what you say. We're watching it after this.
Okay, all right. Now, I'm also very scared of Netflix. So I am also on Netflix's side, and I think it was very wrong of her to file that lawsuit against you, Netflix. And also, Linda, I am also on your side. I am neutral. So, at this point,
She's kidnapped. She's called dirty little crossbreed.
So, Linda takes out her gun, and apparently... This is
Wait. These are two security professionals who work as security for the Secretary General of the United Nations.
Yes.
So they're either United States Secret Service or United States Diplomatic Security. All they said was, are you wearing a wire? And she said, no. So they said, okay, we're going to check your toes. They call her a dirty little crossbreed. And she pulls out her gun because they kidnapped her. She's just, what? Where's she hiding this? In her waistband? They didn't check her.
I guess it's in her waistband, DJ.
They didn't check her, and you expect me to believe that these are members of the security forces? Or any kind of government officials?
Maybe they think Linda's just as scary as I do. Because the gun does spook them, and they pull over to the side of the road, and Linda gets out and makes a break for it and gets away.
Do you know why they were spooked? They were actors.
Because
they were just collecting a paycheck.
They saw her toes and they got spooked.
Jesus H. Christ on a Christmas tree, Paul.
So after this incident, things
Did they leave her alone then? Were they spooked out?
I mean, they still kept getting letters, but things...
Oh, they kept getting letters. Did anyone check the postmarks?
Yeah.
Were they mailed from around the corner of Bud's apartment?
After that experience, things do die down a little bit. And
no shit!
Things have died down. They decide it's time to release the book.
Oh, the book! I should have seen it coming.
The book Witnessed by Bud Hopkins.
Witnessed.
That details everything that happened to Linda and all the unfortunate misfortunes she did experience during this period of time. Now, the book would be very popular, obviously. Real UFO stuff going on. The book was a big thing, okay?
Okay.
Now, while this book got dropped, Carol would do a little writing of her own. She would.
Are they divorced now, or is she in one room of the apartment? He's in another room. They're typing out their dueling books.
At this point, they're still together.
Oh God!
But Linda would write an essay so effective that it would ruin. Wait, let me backtrack a little bit. So Linda writes this essay. She posts it online.
Wait, Linda or Carol?
Oh my god, I am so sorry, guys. Carol.
Carol, okay,
Carol writes this essay refuting everything, saying everything is a hoax. She doesn't believe what her husband's doing. She doesn't believe Linda. She posts it online. And this explodes everything.
When is this?
I think, so 1991 is when Linda gets her first visit.
There was the internet. I thought it was 89.
89 is when she gets abducted. Let me finish. She gets
Okay.
her first visit from Bud and Richard. And that's when that happened. So
Richard.
this is probably around 1992, 93.
They had the internet then?
Maybe 90, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Maybe 94. But she posts this essay online, and this, like, explodes everything. Because at this time, Witness is up for a movie deal, right? They're talking about movies. They're talking about, like, all these things. But after Carol...
Spielberg was making another E.T.
Yeah. Carol releases this essay, no more movie deal. She destroyed the movie deal. She destroyed Bud and Linda's credibility. And most importantly, well, maybe not most importantly, maybe most importantly to Carol, she destroyed her marriage as well. And they ended up getting a divorce after this. So Bud felt like she basically betrayed her, which, low-key,
You know, she was probably looking for an
kinda.
out. She was like, I used to be a respected scientist, and now I'm married to this freak.
Well, I keep saying Linda. Carol has past with being in situations like this. When Carol was raised, she was raised in kind of like a religious culty like type Christian thing. So her parents were in the Plymouth sect of, it's some weird sect of Christianity. And it was basically a cult where you had to believe everything believed, and if they didn't, they basically shunned you. And Carol started questioning her family's religious beliefs from her teenage years. And she questioned it so much that one day her dad would sit her down and basically tell her that she wasn't his daughter anymore and kick her out. So she's had like past trauma of being in relationships
And
where...
being abandoned.
And also like being in a relationship where if you didn't believe what they believed, you're kicked out. You're done. Like, you have to believe what I believe or you're nothing. So this goes back a little bit to some of Carol's past trauma.
Okay.
And I really felt bad for Carol when I was watching this documentary because you could see how pained she was, like, talking about all of this and talking about her past and everything. Like, I really did feel bad for Carol.
No, I think that's awful, but I
mean, honestly, low-key, Carol's kind of like the hero of the story because,
Yeah.
like, she kept a scientific mind throughout all of this. And, like, were they in it? Was Bud in it for the book and the movie?
Yes.
Probably. Allegedly. Maybe. You know, there is a very real possibility that he was just in this. And that's
Yes.
why he didn't want Linda's story to be fake so
I mean,
bad.
from the beginning, like, I said, 5 minutes into the stories, I don't like Bud. It's because he feels like a schemer and a grifter.
Yeah, I feel like after he lost his respect in the art community, that probably hurt his ego a little bit. So this was his, like, big break to regain his credibility and actually be something again in the community.
And I'm reserving judgment on Linda's story, but so far it kind of seems like Bud is kind of making it big. Bud's driving the story.
Well, Linda is a very big personality herself. And we'll get into this later. Well, we're actually getting into theories and conspiracy now because that's like the story of this. Like, after all that, like, Carol basically exploded everything and they don't have a story anymore, right? So let's talk a little bit about the witnesses, okay?
Okay.
Because Carol would do a little bit of digging. She would go back and revisit some of the witnesses' stories. Now, I'm not going to go into all of them, but, like, two of the main ones was, like, one of the witnesses who saw the light outside of her house in her apartment. They saw it through the curtains. They didn't even open up the window, right?
Okay.
And also, another witness was an elderly woman and this woman said she actually saw the spaceship. She was an elderly woman with failing eyesight, right? Like, there were so many of these stories. Like I said, I'm not going to get into all of them because of time, but she did revisit a lot of these witnesses' stories, and things like this happened where she could find, like, holes in the story, right? And obviously the hole in the story of the policeman, like, where were these fucking policemen? Like, and, like, the government official, it all just seems too much. This government official witnessing this alien abduction from their limousine on the bridge or whatever. Like, it's all so much. And you know what? Those letters that Bud was getting
From Richard and Dan.
Carol would, yeah, supposedly Richard and Dan. Carol would take these letters and compare the handwriting to Linda's. And it was a match. And even one of them was signed by the government official. She took it to a handwriting specialist, right? And the government official put the signature over the government official, one of the other government official signatures, and it was like an exact match. And they said that signatures change a little bit. So the fact that it was an exact match, like to a T, meant like they might have like just photocopied it off a document, because it's not that hard to get
Traced it.
Exactly. But the rest of the handwriting did match Linda's handwriting on those letters. So maybe Linda was writing those letters pretending to be Bud and Richard. And to this day, Bud and Richard have never gone forward. Like, yes, they have shown Linda videos of that government official. I don't want to say his full name right now because it's a really long name. They've shown her videos of that government official and the security behind her, and she's pointed at men and been like, oh yeah, that's Dan right there. I'd recognize him anywhere.
And it's not. Like, it's
really
proven.
Well, can we prove it? Because that government official could be lying, but do I believe that was actually Dan or Richard? No, because she could easily point at anyone in that security triage and be like, yep, that's it right there. That's him, okay? So, let's talk a little bit about Johnny, okay?
Okay.
He did an interview for the Netflix documentary confirming his experience and that he was abducted, because there was debate, like, and there still is debate, was Linda leading him? Did Linda, like, tell him, like, these things were happening, right? But Johnny did go on Netflix in that big documentary and say, I was abducted by these aliens, like, they were telling the truth, my mom's telling the truth. But one interesting thing to note that he said in this documentary, he said that when he was 6, he had a nightmare, and he went into his mother's room, and his mother said, and I quote, well, not and I quote, she's basically said that the nightmare was real, it wasn't a nightmare, and what he experienced was real. So, was Linda leading him, telling him his dreams and everything's were real? Talked about that. Let's get into Linda a little bit more, okay? So, before Linda became a housewife, she actually tried to be a singer, and she was actually a pretty popular singer at the time. Her name was Lynn Long. That's her singing name. She used her stage name, and she was actually pretty good. And she was like hanging with all these popular people. She was really on the track to becoming a celebrity. But she had to choose between the celebrity life and being a stay-at-home mom.
Right.
And obviously she chose the be stay-at-home mom. And she does attribute this to her upbringing because she was raised in a very traditional Italian household where your job as a mother was to, and I quote, you raise your kids, you get married, and you go to church, and then you die. And that's the woman's job. And that's what she said. I'm not making that up. That's what she said, straight from Linda. So, obviously, that's probably why she chose this housewife life instead of the being famous life. But did some part of her crave that celebrity life still? Did she see something in this, maybe, that could bring her back to her celebrity status? Now, and you will see, while all this is going on radio shows, news interviews, they even did photo shoots with her. I think low-key, they didn't say this, but I low-key think they were trying to cast her in that movie about Witnessed. I low-key think she was trying to be in that movie.
She probably was.
So, was she... Now, I know what you guys are thinking. She's lying and stuff. But there are people who say, like, how could just a housewife come up with all this stuff? Because there are so many moving parts, the witnesses, everything. How could just a housewife? And while Linda is not dumb, but she's not like Harvard educated, okay? She's like right in the middle there. So there are people who are like, could she really come up with this herself, right? I don't know. Maybe. And could she be leading her own kids and family members?
This is one I'm very skeptical of. There were a lot of facts in here that I just didn't like. sorry, Linda, if you ever hear this. I'm not scared of you. But it kind of sounds, I think she might have worked it up with Bud.
Yeah. Or even like they were feeding off of each other and things just got out of hand. Like they maybe it started as like a fun idea, like, oh, we'll like say I was abducted, and then it kept snowballing and snowballing, and then Linda took it and ran, or one of them took it and ran and started adding shit here and there.
You know, I wouldn't put it past both of them to like be cobbling together, like without the other one knowing, cobbling together evidence, trying to make it more and more believable, trying to trick the other one. And I think they came to the point where they tricked themselves into believing it.
I mean, I could see that for sure. I mean, people are even skeptical.
I think it kind of sounds like Linda has some problems with the paranoia and whatnot, and the vivid dreams, believing it's true. I think that's where it started, and she went to Bud, and he confirmed her fears and her paranoia, and and that's where it snowballed. Where not that she necessarily came up with it maliciously.
Yeah.
She believed it, and he believed it, and it just kept bigger. And you said she's this big personality, so every time the story, it just got to get bigger. It wasn't a flying saucer; it was the mothership.
Exactly. Maybe Bud was feeding into it. Exactly. And just another thing I want to note is some people do say the X-ray might have been faked, because what they could have done is she could have laid down on the table and they could have just stuck something on her nose and like it would have been there.
Yeah.
So there's like all sorts of theories on why this is probably fake. Now, will we ever know? Probably not.
No,
like,
we won't.
Part of me wants to believe, and also part of me thinks this is kind of sad, because like
this is a very sad story.
Because it does give like real UFO counters a bad name, because if this is fake, like it just gives researchers and everyone a bad name. Like,
yeah, and especially it happening during a blackout. If there was this great big light in the sky, more than 23 people.
Well, there is a theory that spaceships are here like all the time, and we just can't see them.
Why did some people see the light but not others?
Maybe they were impervious, or maybe they chose to just show themselves to a couple people.
Okay.
I mean, that's just some theories people have, you know? I mean, people are always going to have their theories. And do I have any more theories for this episode? No. So what do you think?
I'm skeptical. I'm very skeptical of this one. Sorry.
I'm very skeptical too. Allegedly.
Like you said, there are so many moving parts, and it's not like Travis, where Travis seemed like he had a genuine experience and people were taking advantage of him. This is just a little too big to be believed.
Yeah, it's a little... I get exactly what you're saying. I believe Travis Walton's story, more than I believe Linda's. And if you do watch that documentary...
And also, this one's so insular, where it's just Bud and Linda, and like Carol too, but like there's no other outside doctor. I mean, the one, but that could have been a member of Linda's family. But like, it's not like there's all these teams investigating. Which also leads me to think, because it's very easy to control something when it's just you and one researcher. It's when you get more researchers that holes start to poke through the story. And why didn't Bud have other researchers? Why didn't he let her speak to other hypnotists or therapists, or get examined by other doctors?
Because people in the UFO community were chomping at the
and it's
lined up to talk to Linda. Because this is, like I said, could have been the story if it was real, the story of the century, if it is real, no, whatever. But if you do watch that documentary...
What's it called?
The Manhattan Alien Abduction. Sorry, I should have known that off the top of my head. But it's okay. I knew it. I just had to think a minute. But the Manhattan alien abduction, it does get a little, like, crazy at the end because it does end with Carol, like, a shot of Carol telling Linda, like, you're shit, you ain't never been shit. And then Linda says, I've got a big family and you better watch your back to Carol. And that's why I'm scared of Linda. She went on national freaking television, which Netflix is basically national television, and threatened Carol. That's crazy to me. So that's why I'm scared of Linda. I feel like Linda, at this point, she ain't got nothing to lose. So, Linda, please don't come after me. And Netflix, please don't come after me.
Is there a smash or pass?
Yeah. Smash or pass, Linda Napolitano.
Pass.
I'm gonna have to pass too. I mean, if you look at her, she's a fierce diva. She's pretty.
Yeah,
she's
no, I
cute.
believe it. It's just the story. It's just like.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to pass too. But look her up sometime. She is really pretty. She's really.
Oh,
cute.
when that camera goes off, trust me, we're watching that documentary again.
Period. But even though this story is most likely fake, I did have to cover it as one of our alien stories because it's like one of the most well-known. I mean, freaking Netflix did like a 3-part documentary on it.
No, I'm glad that you covered this, and it's good for us to discuss stories that might be skeptical.
Exactly.
Like the Winchester Mystery House.
Yeah. And you know what? At the end of the day, this is a good story. Whether it's true or not, it's like a movie.
Fascinating. It's fascinating, but...
Yeah, it's a good story.
Sorry, Linda. You didn't convince me.
Maybe next time. Probably not, but maybe.
Well, Paul, anything else for the greater good?
Thank you guys for staying through my alien story. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Tell us what you think down below. Do you guys believe that Linda was abducted from her New York apartment? Did you like the Netflix documentary? Do you think I look pretty? What do you think of my Explorer shirt? How do you guys feel about Wendy's? Let us know down below.
Have you been abducted? We'd love to hear your stories. Please email us. Also, be sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on all of our social media right down below. Paul, where can they find you?
You can find me at my personal Instagram and TikTok at Paulember. Paulember. And as usual, guys, it's not delivery. It's DiGiorno.
And if you'd like to follow me, you can do so on TikTok and on Instagram at TheRealDeechPowers. Well, TikTok might be banned right after this, so if it's banned, we'll figure something else out.
I think we're going to have to go to that Blue Sky, whatever the fuck it is.
It's okay. Please, we like to give back. Please go check out www.shatterproof.org and give to the struggle against recovery and ending the stigma around addiction. And that's all she wrote. So until next time, guys, be careful out there and keep your crips tight.
And your corks loose.
Bye.
Please, Linda, don't do it.